Imagine you're 16 years old and you've been crazy in love with this girl for like a year, trying to get her, and you know that, and then suddenly an opportunity opens. Your heart is pounding like crazy, and you know that this might be your only chance of ever getting her.
Welcome to the Great Podcast, where we are going to talk about domain names. But first, Erik, how are you today?
I'm excited. I like domain names. That's my porn, kind of. So I'm excited about the topic.
Oh no!
I really like domain names, believe it or not. So yeah, I'm really excited about the topic of the day. It's a big passion of mine.
It's a lucrative fetish to have, for sure.
Or a very expensive one, depends on how you see it.
Yeah, it is an expensive one. Let me tell you some background of this. 2 weeks ago, a good friend of mine, John, called me and he said, "Hey, man, Emil, what is going on? Why are you on YouTube being naked, talking? This is so weird. What is going on?" And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, our first episode of the Great Podcast, you do not want to go back and look at that. After that, we had a strict shirt on policy, and for a good reason. But what he said was this: "Man, the reason I found your channel is that I talked with you 1 year ago. We haven't talked since. And I remembered your company name, Great.com. So he said, tell your boss Erik that paying $900,000 for a domain name was a good deal." Erik, do you still agree that this was money well spent?
Yeah, I really do. I really do. Well, that was exactly what I'm going for. So I was so happy when you first told me this story like a week ago, that I believe that this is something that is so easy to remember, and people like just, huh? Wow, that's a cool name, and will have that reaction. So yeah, I think it was a good call.
I agree. So I don't know much about domain names, so this was kind of a shocking experience buying this. Would you please share with more people, like, how do you even buy a domain name for $900,000? Where do you go? Who do you call?
I got a guy.
You got a guy?
No, I don't have a guy. Okay, we can start in a different direction, like why this name was so important to me and how I got to that part. Does that sound like a good place to start?
Go.
I'll go. Okay, so I wanted to buy a great domain name, pun intended, to build something big. And let's get back to the story that John told, to see if it makes sense to buy a domain name for this kind of money. If you, let's say you're selling clothes, you have a clothing store. And what is the most important thing if you have a clothing store, you would say?
I'm terribly bad at clothes, but I'm guessing the brand name would be important. That's something that people recognize.
Yeah, I think if you have a physical store, the most important thing is that people will find the store. So preferably it should be on the main street in any city. A lot of people walking by, a lot of people seeing it. And to an online company, the domain name is kind of the address. Well, it is the address. So it becomes a very important address. And well, if you can take your angle, let's say you're Nike or you're Apple or you're Red Bull, what's the most important thing to those companies?
Do you mean with their domain name or in general?
No, in general.
Help me, what is it?
No, it's the brand. That's what I was going for.
I was so off the first time, so I didn't.
So you were right the first time.
Okay,
you were
I was
just
right.
answering the wrong question.
Good job, man.
Yeah, so basically to those companies, the brand is everything. I don't know how many billions of dollars that Nike has put into marketing for their brand name. And their brand is Nike. And I believe that with Great and Great.com, you buy a lot of that brand recognition already with a name. John already remembers it. If the company would have called, I don't know, Grittis.com or whatever, he would probably never have remembered it. So when thinking very big about this, seeing this grand vision of creating something which 50 years from now hopefully is as big as Nike or Apple or Red Bull, then it makes sense to put a lot of money aside for the brand name, because it will make all the marketing and all the other things a lot cheaper down the line. Because now a lot of people will already remember it. If you were 1 year in with the company Nike and you had told John about Nike before the company existed, they would probably not have remembered that name. Maybe Apple, since it's an Apple, and possibly Red Bull, but it's still tricky to remember it. So I wanted a name like that, and I wanted a word with positive connotations to it, that everyone has positive associations. And can you even come up with a way of using the word great in a negative way?
That would be irony. No, I don't know. But I haven't actually, this what you say now is interesting. I haven't thought about it this way, that a company like Nike, that word is just nonsense from the beginning, and then they turn that into something that has a connection for everyone. But great is one of those words that that is used a lot, and that a lot of people have a lot of connotations to. So that marketing now becomes easier.
Yeah, because people will remember it. So I think that Nike or Nike it's some goddess in mythology to begin with, that more or less no one has heard of, but everyone has heard of the brand Nike or Nike. So it's a shortcut to doing that. And thanks to the fact that I've started with a big budget, I can take the shortcut. And I believe that over time it will be way, way worth it. So yeah, I asked you a question and now it's left my head. What did I ask you?
Well, I was asking you, how do you even buy a domain?
Yeah, I asked about negative connotations to the word great.
All right, right.
Yeah, so I wanted a word that has all positive connotations, or at least a lot of them. I asked the same question to a friend and he said, yeah, the Great Depression. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. It's not a good one.
It was a Great Depression though.
It was a Great Depression. But there are very few ways of using that word in a negative way. And it pops up in conversations all the time. I don't know how many times I've said pun intended or pun not intended talking about great. So I wanted a word like that. And I tried to buy play.com and I tried to buy best.com, but landed on great.com after way thoughts. So let's back to answering your question, how this actually happened. I'm sorry for the long sidetrack. I hope it was enjoying.
I had a good time. I learned some stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so I had decided on this name, great.com, and obviously it wasn't available. It was someone who owned it. So the first thing that I did was trying to figure out who owns this domain name, which is not always easy. And you can do that with services like whois.com. So on whois.com, you can put in a domain name, and for most domain names, you can find the owner of the domain name that way. And this turned out to be owners that had shitloads of domains. They had been buying domains over and over for decades. So I realized already there, okay, this is smart people who know that this domain is going to be worth a lot of money.
So wait, was there a website on great.com? Were they doing some kind of business at this point?
No, it was nothing. It was one of these websites when you go into it and you're like, hey, how can no one be using this name?
Right.
And then you think, hey, they should probably be very cheap because they don't use it.
Great opportunity.
And you realize that you're wrong. It was one of those pages. You know, you Google, you look for something. I wonder what's on this site. And like, hey, there's nothing.
You know, people don't do that. Unless domain names is porn.
Okay, I do that. Domain name porn, that's for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so I realized that there was nothing on it. I still realized this was smart people. So I found an email address to some owners, and it was owned by a lawyer firm in New York, which seemed very weird to me. But I started doing some research, and apparently they own a lot of really good domain names. So I emailed them and I tried to buy it for $50,000, and they were like, "Boy, pick it up. You're not even close." So I sat back and I chilled on it for a couple of months, not wanting to seem too eager, still hoping I could get it for $50,000. No, not even close. So I sent.
So wait, stop. What was it like? Because at this point you really wanted the name Great, right?
Yeah.
Had you decided that, if you go into a store and you see a shirt that you really like, and I'm getting this, and then like you sort of try to haggle, but you're getting the shirt anyway. Was it like this kind of situation?
Yeah, I would say it was. I was like, I'm gonna buy this. But at the other hand, I had no idea how much it was going to be.
But what was it like then waiting for 3 months and just being cool about it?
The thing is, the domain was first registered in 96. So someone bought the domain in 96.
Well played.
Nobody had used this for a commercial purpose since 96. So it was kind of like seeing a jacket in the store, but you knew that no one had afforded to buy it in 22 years. So it's not like, is it gonna go away? Quite unlikely. Obviously, I was a bit nervous about it. And at the same time, I didn't want to start developing straight away anyway. So I was quite fine with this taking time. But yeah, I was always a bit nervous that someone would buy it. So 3 months in, I sent another offer, maybe 100K or 150K, I don't remember. Same thing. They're like, "Guy, you need to add another zero to that." So I was like, don't want to add another zero. So it took another 3 months, and I upped the ante a bit more, and I think I got to like $500,000 on that offer. Still no, not even close, according to them. So I relaxed a bit more, and then I got an email from one of these domain giants who is arranging a domain auction in Las Vegas every year. It's actually going on right now, NamesCon, I think it's called. And I was told that, hey, this is a list of names that will appear on this auction. And it was a lot of like really, really expensive domain names. And it included great.com. So I was like, fuck, it's going to be on an auction. Now everyone's going to want to buy it. And I had no idea what that was like. So I was told that the auction was going to be in Las Vegas on the, I think, 8th of February last year, 7th of February, something like that. But the information was quite limited, and there was an online auction before, and then was going to be there and was going to be qualifying. I did not, because it was shitloads of domain names, but apparently only the best ones got to be live in Vegas. So I didn't understand how this would work out. But I decided, okay, I'm going to Vegas on the 7th of January to be there in the room. I'm buying that name. And before that, I went to Iceland because I had this adventure trip planned to go up on Eyjafjallajökull, this volcano that destroyed the airplane traffic for a couple of weeks some years ago.
Yeah, that was great for Iceland.
It was actually really good marketing.
Yeah.
They were in every newspaper for, I don't know, 2 weeks.
And their airport was working great.
It was?
Yeah, they were the only airport in Europe that worked because it was on the right side of that volcano. I think it was like that.
I did not know that. Okay, so I was going up there with these jeeps, and we were snorkeling in 2 degrees water between the what's that called? The volcanic plates, kind of. Yeah, don't remember the place, but you can swim in between them in Iceland in 2 degrees water.
Wow.
So that was really cool. So I was there to do all of these weird things. And I was living in this shitty little hotel in the middle of nowhere, completely pitch black when you looked out of it. It was snowing all the time. It was like storm. And I found out the same day that, hey, the auction is tonight.
Wow.
I was like, what? So, and this was Las Vegas time. So the auction started at 2 a.m. So in the middle of the night, Icelandic time. And I was gonna go up at 6, going away on these adventure things. I was like, what the fuck is this? So I need to figure out a way to get internet working on a fairly stable line. It worked okay-ish. I sat up there in the middle of the night and I called you because you were the only one who knew I was going to buy this name. And say, hey, Emil, it's an auction tonight. What was your reaction to that?
It's tonight? What? I thought you were going to Vegas.
Yeah, so we had no idea what we were doing. So the auction started, I think, 1 or 2 a.m. And there were all of these domain names going on one after the other. And there were hundreds of domain names. And some of them were amazing. There was like lucky.com were going out for auction. Prince.com, I think, went out for auction. But
Didn't
also
they have
a lot
sex.com, like...
Oh, sex.com wasn't there. That's
there?
even insanely more expensive. That's
Okay.
probably $10+ million domain name.
Jesus.
But and a lot of like cheaper ones, which was maybe buyhouseinsurance.com, which is still a good name, but not in the same range. So they started at maybe $1,000 each or something, and went up to, I think the most expensive one was lucky.com, sold for 1.1 million. But regardless, this auction starts, and I knew that I had already offered $500,000, and I didn't think that anyone else would pay more than $500,000 for a domain name in this auction. So I didn't think that the deal would go through. So I was more or less just sitting awake, really, really tired after a day of adventures, and hoping that the auction wouldn't be done, hoping no one would pay more than I already offered.
So you could buy it afterwards.
Exactly. So I could pick up those conversations. So I'm sitting there in front of the computer, and it looked like the website was built in 2002. It was blue, very little information. It looked really shitty. Like, yeah, you who played poker back in the days knew what poker clients used to look like in 2005.
Yeah, man.
It looked like that. Really shitty. And it was supposed to be a webcam filming because apparently the auction was going on in Vegas at the same time. So there was another auction in Vegas on the 8th of February. So I just missed which auction it was on.
Just to clarify, maybe you haven't played poker, but me and Erik played when we were 16. And back then there were some pretty shady clients. And were you ever in Thailand playing?
No.
No, okay. A lot of poker players were in Thailand. And then you had bad internet, and you played on some clients where it looked like a 4-year-old had built them. You're like, what is going on here? I have no idea. Money is going everywhere, and you get disconnected all the time. But back then you played for $50. But now you're on this shitty client making... did it feel like making business deals for hundreds of thousands of dollars on a client that looked like a 4-year-old had built it?
Well, have you ever been in an auction? Bought an apartment, sold an apartment.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know the feeling when you're bidding on something and you're just hoping no one else would bid?
Yeah.
Please don't do anything. Or the other way around, if you're selling something and it's probably buy, bid. It's actually
it's a good rush. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Big rush, like boom, 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 boom. So imagine that, but you're not trusting the real estate agent because it's a weird looking thing. You're gonna buy something which is more or less air. It's a name. It's not it's not an apartment. It's not a car. You're gonna buy a name, and you have next to no information whatsoever about anything. So it was a real auction going on in Vegas at the time, and I was just connecting to it online. So
did you know that at this point though?
Yeah, I knew that it was going on. I just understood it the same day. So I couldn't go to Vegas because I was in Iceland. And I didn't think anyone would pay for the domain name, so I didn't think the auction would really happen.
But you couldn't see anyone else that was bidding, right?
No, there was supposed to be a webcam. So there was a screen on my screen, like live streaming from the room, but it was pitch black.
Oh,
and there was supposed to be audio, so you could hear what was going on in the room, didn't work. So when people were bidding, the only thing I saw was a number changing on my screen. I didn't know who bid. I didn't know what happened. I didn't know if they were going to bid more or what was going on in the room, if there was someone waiting to bid. Yeah, so either way, let's go back into this. So I'm sitting there in my hotel room, in my bed. I'm talking to you over Skype. And I can feel that, okay, I just want to go to bed, but I still want to stay up and see this happen. And the domain name auction, it gets closer and closer to my name.
So you really didn't think anyone else would bid at this point?
No, I didn't think anyone else would bid because most of the expensive domain names weren't sold. So on the really expensive ones, it didn't hit the reserve price. So the seller more or less always said, yeah, I'm not going to sell. And since I knew that this domain hadn't been sold for 22 years, I didn't think anyone would pay for it now.
What are the chances?
Yeah, so the domain name comes up. And it's my turn. And I have put in a bid on $100,000. And I know that they're not going to accept that because they didn't accept my $500,000 bid before. And the screen is still black. I hear no audio, no whatsoever. There's no chat. I don't know anything going on. And I'm just waiting for it to be over so I can go to sleep. So I'm almost falling asleep in front of the screen. And I think I'm telling you, like, yeah, no one's going to buy this. It feels good. Just go to bed.
I didn't feel like that at all. I thought something was gonna go down.
You kept calm for me.
I'm not sure. I was excited.
Yeah, I was just hoping nothing would happen because I hadn't really thought this through. I didn't know how much I wanted to pay for it. I didn't know what I was gonna do really with it. I just know I really, really wanted it.
Have you ever been hunting? Like for big game? I haven't either, but imagine you sitting there with your rifle and like you haven't seen anything all day, but you know something's gonna happen soon. That's how I felt.
Okay, yeah, I felt like that, but I felt that there is no moose going around in the forest today. I just want to go home and crawl up under my big bear cover and just feel the fire burning next to me and have a sip of my warm chocolate. And then BAM!
Moose!
The moose comes up. Now, out of nowhere, someone bids $500,000. So it's not like they're increasing with $500 or something from my 100K. They increased with $400,000 on top of my bid. And I was like, huh? What the fuck? And I have no information. I still have no video, no audio. And the only thing that's showing on my screen right now is a button that says bid $600,000.
And how much time do you have to make a decision?
I have no idea. There's no timer. There is no nothing. It's like, I don't know. Do I have 5 seconds to bid? Do I have 5 hours? There is no information whatsoever. I mean, if you're buying an apartment, you can at least call the real estate guy and say, hey, is it okay if I take an hour to think about this? No, not so much. So I'm sitting here. The only thing I see blinking on my screen is $600,000. And I'm just saying, I want this name. So before I even really thought this through, I'm like, bid! $600,000. Like, and if the pump was like ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom before, from 1 second to another is like... I can feel the hair on the back of my head is just raising up. I feel that I start sweating and I'm like, Emil, what's going on? Still, no information whatsoever. And it's quiet for, I don't know, 30 seconds, a minute. It felt like 2 hours. and I was like, okay, do I win? Please, no one do anything. No one's doing anything. And then bam! And just bam! Twice in a row. $700,000, $800,000. And I still have no idea if the person who's bidding is even real. I don't know if it's the same person. I don't know if it's someone else. I don't know anything because this is all happening in the room in Vegas. And I'm sitting there. It's like, okay, now I have a blinking number saying $900,000 on my screen. That's $300,000 that when I clicked it a couple of minutes ago.
Mm. You know, me at this point, I was thinking, is this the domain seller trying to just raise up the price of their domain and then they can just sell it to you afterwards anyway? So I was really worried at this point. Like, are you getting scammed now? Is this real?
And imagine you don't know if you're getting scammed. You have zero information whatsoever. Yeah. And you've been thinking about this for like a year. I mean, I was so in love with this name. Imagine you're 16 years old and you've been crazy in love with this girl for like a year, trying to get her, and you know that, and then suddenly an opportunity opens. Your heart is pounding like crazy, and you know that this might be your only chance of ever getting her.
That's Grandma's funeral is not that important. I'll come to your party.
Exactly. That's how this felt. I was madly in love, and this could slip my fingers.
Oh man.
You do crazy things when you're madly in love.
You do, yeah.
So I'm sitting here, it's like, fuck it, I'm going for it. Click! $900,000. And then it goes quiet. I still have a button on my screen and it says $1 million. But I know I'm the highest bidder, so I'm not going to bid to myself. I'm just sitting there, I'm just looking at it. And I have goosebumps all over my body. I can feel it. My breath was probably like this. What's going on? What's going on? And you know, have you ever done the exercise, the plank?
Yeah.
When you're lying down in this, and 1 minute feels like an hour. It's probably the longest minutes that you can experience. Now imagine that you've done plank for a year and you still have to do 1 more minute. That's the length of these minutes. I was panicking. I had no idea what's going on. Didn't know anything about the room, and it took forever. When the other domains, they were closing after a couple of minutes, and this was just going on and on and on. I just saw that button and was staring at me with this evil grin, kind of like, I'm gonna get you. And I know that if someone bids $1 million, my next bid is probably 1.1. There are no other options. That's another $200,000 for what? And then it says something like reserve not met, which means that the buyer haven't accepted the price, but nothing else happens. So it doesn't really start. And then suddenly comes up like 5 minutes later, like, congratulations, you have won the auction. I was like, yay! Or no, what did I do? I'm not sure I want this, but yay! And I was like, because I hadn't really thought it through. I was willing to pay 500, and now suddenly I paid 900, and I was still madly in love. So
you buy this to make, you know, you're going up in 3 hours. Could you sleep that night? What did you tell your friends the day after? What was it like having breakfast the morning after?
Well, I had told the other people that I was going to be awake for this auction, so they knew this. So obviously the first question that came in when I came into the breakfast, we were 12 people on this trip. I was like, how did it go? And then they see my eyes. They're like this. And my energy is like, so like, okay, you won, didn't you? Yes! So I was high on life. I was still a bit panicky, not really sure what I'd done. Not really knowing if this was a good idea or not. But happy. I had got the woman of my dreams. I mean,
man, that's a story filled with a lot of adrenaline. I would like to switch gears a little bit here and
I'll try.
ask you. Okay, so the positive side of 900K is people remember the name. You get this incredible rush from buying expensive things, but still 900,000. You're buying this for a project that is going to be a charity. If you didn't buy a $900,000 domain name, you could potentially have used that for charity. You could have donated it. I know, for example, we have done some research and we figured out $900,000 could save the lives of 300 people. So, if you want to do good, can it really be worth it? It's not really paying, but choosing a domain name, which is nothing, like you said, over 300 lives.
Yeah, that's a big shift in energy. Give me 2 seconds. Okay, so I'll get that question. I really understand that question. It's a very valid question can a domain name be worth the life of 300 people? Can you look at it that way philosophically? Could I have bought the name greatgreat1234.com for $12 and given all the money away instead and saved those 300 lives? And to be honest, I don't know what the right answer is to this. I might have fucked this up completely and to the expense of 300 lives. But I'll take you through my train of thought, and it goes back to where we started with this. So what's the most important thing for a clothing store? What's the most important thing for a brand? And how much is that worth? And what does that mean over time? So my vision with this is to donate billions of dollars over the next 50 years. Hopefully lots of billions of dollars. And it's a crazy big vision. And I completely understand that a lot of people say that's never going to happen. But to me, it's the truth. I feel certain that that will happen. I feel very, very confident in this. And I will dedicate my life to making that happen. And then this is the brand. This is the address. This is the most important asset to the entire project. And if the project's going to donate billions, then I believe that the name is going to be able to make or break that dream. And hopefully then, if $1 million is 300 lives, then $1 billion is 300,000 lives. So what I'm saying is more or less that I'm betting 300 lives on the opportunity to save 300,000 lives. And with that, I'm putting that pressure on my shoulder. With that, I'm saying that, yeah, I better fucking deliver on this, because otherwise I didn't save those lives and there was no reason for it. Then I wasted those lives. And it feels tough to put those pressure on this project and put that pressure on myself. And I'm hoping I'm making the right call, because I'm aiming to save those 300,000 people, hopefully even more than that. But that means that I need to invest. That means that I need to start with this. And we'll see if it works out.
Cool. So yeah, it's not money that you could have donated, it's an investment that you make for the future.
Yeah.
And that makes a lot of sense. Like, if you want to build any company, you need to buy certain things to get started.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm donating a lot of money right now as well. So, but I could donate more right now if I wasn't investing in this. So it's a choice that I make on a more or less daily basis. And I am hoping and I'm believing that it's the right call.
Cool. There are many things I would like to go into more here. For example, the long vision. I would like to explore the responsibility that you feel. And I heard some sound in the background, but it's fine now.
Yeah.
There are some things that...
Can you hold on 1 second?
Yes.
We had a vacuum cleaning situation going on out there, so I figured they could please hold that for a minute.
Was your girlfriend cleaning? How dare she?
Yeah.
Always happens. Yeah, always happens. Jesus. Like I said, there are many things I would like to go into on that topic. But for now, and for this podcast, I would like to stay on the topic of domain names. And as we all know, I'm quite the expert on domain names. I know pretty much everything, so... No. No, I'm a complete noob. I don't know anything about domain names. And I would like to ask you some questions so that me and listeners maybe not sure where to begin if they were to get their own domain name, how they can think, what they should start, what is important. So the next segment would be more educational, and I will be the guinea pig of this. All right, cool. So let's say I was to buy a domain name. What are the most important thing I need to think about?
Well, first and foremost, it depends on what you want to do. Do you want to build a small little side project, or do you want to build a grand scale vision?
Okay. Let me make up a project in my mind, and then we can use that as an example. All right, let's say I want to create a company. You can ask me to choose another example if this is not a good fit. But let's say I want to create a company that wants to educate people to eat more vegetables. And the business idea here is then I will sell some green nutrients on the site. And it's my passion project, but maybe if it grows to something big, that would be really cool as well. So there's a big dream, but I'll start small. Well, how would you think about that situation?
Well, there are two different kinds of approaches to take. One is having a domain name that clearly explains what it is that you're doing. Mm-hmm. And one is having something that can build a brand. So if you have something that clearly explains what you're doing, you can get the benefit of search engines, for example. So you could choose to have buygreennutrients.com, for example. And that will help you to be found in Google on a search word like buy green nutrients, which might be really good for you.
So wait, can I ask you a little bit more question there? How does Google take the name of the domain into account? Is that like a really big factor for Google?
It used to be more or less the biggest factor for Google.
Okay.
And it's still a big factor. It's not the biggest one. It's not as important as it used to be, but it makes a lot of sense, because if people are just looking for buy green nutrients, for example, then Google will not really be sure if they're looking for your brand, buy green nutrients, or if they're just looking to buy green nutrients. So you will benefit from that, because Google will want to make sure that whoever's looking for that brand, which happens to be your brand, is actually finding it.
Okay.
So in that way, you will benefit from becoming the brand that people look for. Or you can have a completely different name, which is just emilsveggies.com, which no one is going to Google for unless it is your brand, but people might remember it easier. People might see it on Instagram and these kind of things. So they might be easier to brand it in these ways. And if you're building a project that's going to be a large scale project and you want to do this, you want to do these things, then the brand is probably going to matter the most. Because in the long term, that makes a lot of sense. So like great.com, no one is going to Google just great and find something to do business with us, but it's very brandable. Instead of being called, I don't know, next generation charity or whatever that people, I don't know. But so if you're going for the name that really explains this and that's something that people can search for, you will have a shortcut into getting people looking for it. But you will not have the brandability. So if you're just building a small side project, I would go with the shortcut. Like, this is something I can make some money from. This could be a fun thing. You could get started a bit quicker because you have taken that shortcut. But in the long run, it might be worse.
Could I change name later on? Or would that be almost impossible from Google's perspective? So is the name I pick in the beginning, do I have to stick with that?
You can change the name. There are ups and downs, and that's a whole podcast of talking as well. Okay. But yes, you can. And if you do, Google 301 redirect before you do it. And I'll just let someone else explain how that works. But that's very important. So 301 redirect. You need to make sure to get that part wrong. So yeah, this is the first basic then. Do you want to build something you brandable, or do you want to be able to make easier results in the search engines? So I would start for you. I would start with a shortcut to start selling these kind of things up there. And I'm guessing that you would do it in Sweden, so I would get the .se domain or the .nu domain, which is common to use in Sweden.
But I want the .com domain. It's much cooler.
Yeah, it's cooler. It's trickier depending on if it's almost all .com domains are taken. So what you can do then is basically doing what I did with this auction, but on a much smaller scale. So let's say the name is taken because almost all domain names are taken. So either you find one which is not taken, and Emil's Veggies is probably not taken, or maybe it is. Emil's Super Veggies, I don't know. You can find a version of it that's not taken. Then you can buy it for like $12. And if it is taken, but no one is using it, depending on those domains start at maybe $100 and then they go up to infinity. But a domain name for a small business can be bought for like $500 or something like that. So then you can usually find the owner by whois.com, as I mentioned before, or on, for example, sedo.com, SEDO, where you can buy these kind of domains on auctions, but there's a lot cheaper. So you want the .com domain, it's taken, you can contact the owner, you negotiate a little bit, and hopefully you could buy a domain like that for $500-ish. And maybe it's worth the old money because you really want to do that, and it gives you shortcuts for the future.
Cool. So the reason they're more expensive then, because somewhere when the internet started, that .com became cooler and all those names just got bought. So now,
yeah, .com is being used everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
So that's like the ultimate domain name. And so you could say that .com is Manhattan. It's like a lot of money there, a lot of people there, a lot of people coming there from everywhere. And then .se, that's Stockholm. It's still a pretty big city. There's still a lot of people, but not compared to New York. So it will be a lot cheaper to buy something in Stockholm than it is to buy it in New York. If we take that analogy with a shop before, like if you want your store on Fifth Avenue, it's gonna cost you a lot more to buy than if you're buying it on Drottninggatan in Stockholm. So it's the same kind of thing here, that cool. .com will be the most expensive one.
And do Google care, do they prioritize the .com names over the .se names, for example?
For English, yes. And this is also something that used to be more before than it is now. So this is another thing, that the .com is more on the branded side. So it could be worth paying for the .com if you want to build a brand, if you want to do these things. But if you want your traffic from search engines, you might go with the cheaper option, and if it's in English, you might buy .net or .org or .info, which is usually 10% of the price of a .com, if that. So you could go with that, and it's once again, it's not as brandable because people are not going to think about the .net if they're just remembering something. There's one more thing for them to remember. To remember great.com is a lot easier to remember than great.net. So that goes with that as well.
Okay. So you're saying if I want a shortcut and get results right away, I should buy a domain name that describes my business. Eat vegetables, and if I'm really cool, I choose .com. And if I can afford it, because that's the Manhattan. All right. I'm obviously going .com, but let's say someone else is already on that. What if someone already has a business on eatvegetables.com? Or what if there was a business there before and now it's closed down?
Okay, so if there already is a business there, unless you have a really big budget, I would just move on. It's basically, if we take that example with the dream woman of our life, that means that you're meeting her, but she's already married, and she's happily married, most likely. So it's going to be a lot more effort to win her over than to get the single woman.
We need a plan, yes.
Yeah, we could also have a plan. But if I'm just going to save you the headache, it's more likely that you will win the single woman than the married woman. But if, on the other hand, the woman has been married, so there has been a website, and now she's gotten divorced, so the website is closed down. This might actually be beneficial to you, because a website that has been a website before does already have a relationship to Google, for example. So it already has a certain value in the search engines, because someone has been using it, someone has been doing something progressive and good with it. So if you buy a website that used to be something good, you can actually benefit from that. So there are websites where you can find expired domains, it's called. So domains that has been used in the past. So Google for expired domains, and you can see lists of that. And that might actually be beneficial, because this woman who is now divorced, she had learned a lot in her first marriage, so now she's ready to bring that to the table with you, and she doesn't need to relearn everything. Sticking with that analogy, even though it's starting to fade.
No, we can make it even more absurd if you'd like. So Great, for example, she has never been married. The Great.com domain.
She's never been married.
All right, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so the short answer is don't try to buy an existing business. It's much, much more likely that you can buy something else.
Do you have any more advice for my business that I might have missed, or do you have something other to share about domains for now?
I think that we covered the beginner lesson about this. I think we got most of it.
Can I ask, how did you learn this stuff? Did you have this knowledge prior to building your previous business, Katina? Because Katina, that's a name that you made up and then branded, I guess. So you went for you didn't go for the shortcut.
Yes and no. So Katina is a company that owns a lot of websites. So katinamedia.com doesn't care that much about traffic. It's not important that it gets a lot of visitors to that site. On the other hand, we had websites that are about casino and gambling and stuff, and some of them are called casinobonus.com, more or less, where it's very niche towards that, while others are called johnslots.com, which is just a brand name than John, and well, slots is a keyword, but no one's going to look for John Slots. So there's those two different angles on it. So, but to answer your question, I learned by doing. I had no idea what I was doing when I was getting into this. So I got into this 10 years ago, give or take, 12 years ago. And I did a lot of mistakes. I read a lot of blogs and forums, and I used a lot of trial and error. And I really loved doing that. I think that was the key thing. I was passionate about this topic. I saw that how that could work within the bigger picture. And I really enjoyed the negotiations part. I enjoyed the research part. I enjoyed talking to people about it. And I enjoyed creating something and building something on top of that name. Because the name is... I'm trying to come up with a good analogy for the name. The name is like the first thing you... Like you see the house you're going to build. It's like the first time you can look at the blueprint of it. It helps to envision how everything will look. So it's been a big passion of mine.
Cool. And I think Great is a name that also works for both charity and for business. I think you talked with me about this before. Was that one of the reasons that you wanted Great over a name like Play, for example?
Yes. So one of the things I was looking for was I wanted to do something that could combine gambling and charity, which, just to start with, is a challenging way of doing things. That to most people when I tell this story, people are like, huh? You want to do charity and gambling? And I'm like, yeah, makes a lot of sense. And I completely understand that. So I wanted to have a name that could be worked for Great Casino as well as Great Charity. And a name like Play could possibly do that. A name like Best could possibly do that. But casinoguide.com could never do that, for example. Or givingforcharity.com could never be a casino. So I wanted a name that had a positive feeling and could work with anything. So now in the grand vision of this, it could be great insurances, it can be great traveling, great business cards, great whatever, and it can still work very much with charity and giving things away. So there are actually very few words that ticks all of those boxes. And yeah, that's why teenage me fell madly in love with a woman of great.com.
I get that. And then we're touching on a lot of things now that could potentially be whole other podcasts. But we're sort of running up on time. I have one more noob question in this little tiny education. My dad loves buying things, and he loves justifying buying things by saying something like, if you buy a guitar, he has like 4 guitars. If you buy a guitar, the value of the guitar doesn't go down. You can sell it 20 years later for pretty much the same price. So of course you can have 4 guitars. Is a domain name a similar thing? If you were to sell great, do you think you would get your money back?
I think I do. The challenge with that is that anything is only worth what someone is willing to pay for it. Regardless, as we said with hockey pictures earlier today when you and I were talking about it, it's very easy to say that something is worth something, but at the end of the day, it's only worth what someone is willing to pay. So I could probably sell great.com for $900,000, but it might take me 22 years to find that person who's willing to buy it. So is it worth $900,000 then? Maybe, maybe not. I actually talked to the guy I was bidding against. I got in contact with him by accident, and he was another domain owner guy, so he had a lot of domain names, and I asked him what he would have charged for the domain name if he had bought it from the auction and I wanted to buy it from him later, and then he said probably 5 million. So he considered the domain name to be worth 5 million, but he wasn't willing to pay more than 900,000 for it because he couldn't risk holding on for it for 22 years to find a buyer. So it's really tricky like that. It's kind of like a very expensive
to be a pretty specific buyer to get something like that.
Yeah. Imagine that you have some piece of jewelry. You have a watch covered in diamonds. A super fancy thing, and it's 200 years old. It's worth $10 million. But it's really hard to find the buyers for that one. If you don't know a lot of Arabian sheikhs or tsars of Russia, you're not going to sell it. So is it worth it? Tricky to say. So yeah, but to answer it, I think I could sell great.com for 900,000. I just don't know how long it would take.
Cool. All right. We just bought Emil and Erik for presidents.com, obviously. What are we going to do with it?
I'm going to become presidents. I mean...
Everything is so easy with a good domain name.
I like to say that I'm going to be the first non-American American president.
Yeah.
And starting now, I'm going to say I'm going to be the first American non-American co-president. So we're going to be the first 2 presidents at the seat.
It's going to be great.
Make the world great again.
Exactly. All right, guys, if you're listening to this on YouTube, please leave us a comment about what you want to see in the future. If you have any feedback to us for this podcast, we'd love to hear what you have to say. Erik, I know you're going away to some boxing. Be gentle. Have a nice day.
Have a nice day. Thank you.